So anyway, then he says, so how do you cure it? عالج بمن بجمعها قد تعبوا دهرا طويلا فحوم طلبوا فبينما هم دارجوا مراقي زهرتها إذ هجمت حلاقي. So listen to this, is so amazing, I think. He's saying, treat it by realizing that those who indeed have achieved it did only so by exhausting themselves over long periods of time. In other words, how bad do you want it, right? If you want it that bad, you have to work for it. And working for it means day and night. Meanwhile, life, right, is passing you by, right? People spend all this time at work. They never have time for their families because dunya, have to keep working, have to make more and more. And this obsessive, it becomes an obsession, right? And so the actual life passes by. And the experiences of life are lost, right? Like somebody said, life is busy. What happens when you're busy doing other things, right? So everybody's in this just obsessive search for security and for wealth, and in the end, their life is over. So he said, look at those people, how they've wasted, exhausted themselves getting it. And then he says, and just as they're starting to climb the heights, right? Just as they're starting to achieve what they did, right? They've got everything they wanted, and just as they're approaching the heights of its splendor, suddenly, without their permission, death assails them, right? And I mean, here, really, I think that Dodi and Diana is a really good example of that, in all honesty, because, and that's why people were so devastated by that. People really were. In England, they were devastated by it. Because it's like, no, she can't die. It's like, her life was the life that all of these people wanted, right? Fame, beauty, lineage, right? All of these things, wealth. She had it, quote unquote, she had it all. That's what they say in this culture. She had it all. Right at the prime of her life, right? 38 years old. Death it's not invited in. That's what he says. It comes without invitation. Hajamat means to come without invitation. You didn't invite it. It just shows up. It's time to go. And it takes the person. So all these wealthy people have to die. And then also he said, also realize, right? Treat it also by recognizing the disdain shown to misers. Nobody likes a miser. Nobody. And he's saying even misers don't like each other. Right? And that's how bad it is. The hatred people have for them, even amongst themselves. And then he says, with this same treatment, treat the one whose heart's ailment is love of wealth. Right? So, if it's hubb ad-dunya also, treat it that way. And then he says, the next disease, so that was bukhl. Next disease is batar. And he says, وَالْبَطَرَ الْمَرَحُ جِدًّا وَالْمَرَحُ فَسَّرَهُ الْمِلْحُ بِشِدَّةِ الْفَرَحِ. Batar is, it's hard to translate it. Wantonness is reasonably close. Its definition, he says, is excessive mirth. According to the people of knowledge, milah means the scholars, is too much exuberance. The Arabic word in my footnote there, due to the richness, difficult to render into English, the word batar has several meanings, among which are the inability to bear blessings, bewilderment, dislike of something undeserving of dislike, excessiveness with blessings. The author defines it as excessive mirth, farah, and informs us that its cure is hunger and reflecting on death, which indicates it's caused by excessiveness in the blessings of this world, with little reflection on otherworldly matters. So wantonness, which in English is a reckless extravagance, comes close to the meaning. Now in the Quran, and we'll stop for Dhuhr in a second. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولُهُ وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ وَاصْبِرُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ خَرَجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بَطَرًا وَرِيَاءَ النَّاسِ وَيَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ مُحِيطٌ. Allah says, obey Allah and His Messenger, and don't dispute amongst you, because you'll fail, and your power, your strength will go, the wind that carries you will go, and be patient, because Allah is with the patient, and don't be like those who leave their homes batara, like filled with this kind of excessive joy and pride about their state. Riya an-nas, showing off to people. يَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and they're preventing people from the way of Allah. وَاللَّهُ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ مُحِيطٌ, and Allah encompasses what they're doing. Right? And then another one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ بَطِرَتْ مَعِيشَتَهَا فَتِلْكَ مَسَاكِنُهُمْ لَمْ تُسْكَنْ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا وَكُنَّا نَحْنُ الْوَارِثِينَ وَمَا رَبُّكَ مُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى حَتَّى يَبْعَثَ فِي أُمِّهَا رَسُولًا يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِنَا وَمَا كُنَّا مُهْلِكِي الْقُرَى إِلَّا وَأَهْلُهَا ظَالِمُونَ وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَزِينَتُهَا وَمَا عِندَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ 564. So Allah says, how many cities have we destroyed? بَطِرَتْ مَعِيشَتَهُمْ. They were so happy with their livelihood, their standard of living. Right? They were so happy. They were really in joy about how good things were. And now He says, فَتِلْكَ مَسَاكِينُهُمْ. Now look at their empty places. Go to the ruins of Rome. Go to the ruins of Carthage. Go to the ruins of the Acropolis. Go to, all of these places. And look at those ruins and realize that one day there were people filling those things. They thought everything was fine, and now nothing left. Right? And the same is going to happen here, just like it happened in Russia. It's going to happen. It happens wherever there's batar. It's a big disease of the heart. And the Americans, this is a particularly American disease. A particularly American disease. I think it's really important for Americans to have an awareness of how severe this disease is, because it's related to being really pleased with your standard of living in a way that leads to a type of extravagance. And so there's an idea, what happens in this culture is, we'll worry about paying it later. I've got plastic, it's no problem. There's excessive extravagance. There's no thought of what does this mean for the future generations. What does the national debt mean for the children down the road? Every child in this country is born like in $40,000 in debt. Literally born $40,000 in debt. And that's a result of their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents' excessiveness. Right? Because they don't have to live like that. They're living beyond their means. And that's what batar is. It's living beyond one's means because you're so happy, that it's all there. I can have it all now. And he's going to go into the cure, but we should stop, inshallah, and come back if you don't mind. He says that the cure for batar is عالجه بالجوع وذكر الآخرة, to treat it with hunger and remembrance of the akhirah. Now, what he means by ju' there is fasting, or by not eating a lot. One of the things in traditional medicine, which usually was related to a spiritual cosmology, whether it was Unani, Greek medicine, or Ayurvedic, or Chinese, or traditional Arabic medicine, one of the beliefs is that too much food killed the spiritual heart. So the people that eat a lot tend to become hard-hearted. Now, I think it's also interesting that in Western medicine, people that eat a lot of rich foods literally become physically hard-hearted. In other words, they get arteriosclerosis, which is sclerotic hearts. And sclerotic means hard, rigid, stiff. So the spiritual heart, usually what happens like that in the physical world is also a reflection or a metaphor for the physical world, the spiritual world, right? This is a metaphor. So too much consumption of the pleasures of the world will harden the heart. And that's the meaning there. And Abu Madian al-Ghawth, Abu Madian al-Ghawth, who was one of the great spiritual masters of North Africa. He was a scholar who went to the Qaraween, graduate of the Qaraween. and he's more known for his tasawwuf than for his outward knowledge, but he was a scholar of outward knowledge. He was constantly saying that ju' really is an important concept. Fasting, feeling emptiness in the stomach. It's good to fast, according to Imam Malik radiyallahu anhu, 3 days out of the month. That's the best, according to Imam Malik. To do the fast of Dawood is generally considered to be excessive, even though there's a hadith that says it's the best fasting. The Sahabi that actually, the Prophet, he asked, one of the Sahaba asked the Prophet to give him a fast, and he said, fast 3 days out of the month, the Ayam al-Bayad, which are the days when the moon's the fullest. And he said, I can do more than that. Utiqu akthar. He said, I can do more. Obviously, the first thing was the moderate. That's a moderate thing to do, because the Prophet ﷺ's way is moderation. And if you fast 3 days out of the year, which equals how many months? 12. So 12 times 3 is 36. Every hasana is 10 times 360. That's as if you fasted the whole year. Right? So it's just doing those 3 days is like fasting the whole year. So, what's that? Yeah, I'm going to get to that. The next, then he said, I can do more than that. So the Prophet ﷺ said, then fast Mondays and Thursdays, which is 2 days a week. And then he said, I can do more than that. And then he said, then fast every other day, which is the fast of Dawood, and don't do more than that. So he started to fast every other day. It's in the Sahih. When he got to old age, he said he wished he would have listened to the advice of the Prophet ﷺ and only fasted 3 days. Now, Ibn Abi Jamrah and others take from that hadith that this was a sign that the Sahaba, if they did a nafila, they did it until they died. In other words, it was something they really took on as a spiritual practice and didn't leave it, because the hadith, خَيْرُ الْأَعْمَالِ أَدْوَامُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. The best actions are those that are consistent. The point being is the 3 days of the month, Ayam al-Bayad, are good days if you can fast those days. It means keeping track of the lunar calendar. Most calendars will tell you when the full moon is. So it's usually the 13th, 14th, and 15th. It's the day before the full moon, the day of the full moon, and the day after the full moon. So you can literally, if you get a calendar that has full moons on it, you could do that, and then just remember to fast those days. They're good days to fast. Inshallah, we'll all make the intention to do that, and Allah give us tawfiq in doing that. Fasting Mondays and Thursdays, that's a good thing, no doubt about it, but it's also difficult to maintain it, particularly because of the changes when you live in more extreme climates, and you have very short winters but very long summers, unlike Arabia, where it's pretty much balanced all year long because they're very close to the equator. So in more extreme climates, it gets a little more difficult to do that because fasting does tire you out. And then he says, and to remember the akhirah. Doing dhikr of the states of the akhirah is important. Tafakkar fi ahwal does not come into me right now, but doing tafakkur of death is a really good practice to do. Remembering the states of the grave, the akhirah, meditating on that, they're important ways of reminding ourselves. And then he says also use the ayah, لا يحب الفرحين. إن الله لا يحب الفرحين. Allah doesn't love farihin, people of batar, excessive farah with their dunya. They're really happy with their dunya, right? I mean, this culture, there's all these billboards showing people in these kind of ecstatic, right, smiles, and they've always got their mouths open for some reason, right? I mean, you don't look at billboards. I'm really trying to eliminate that, but, you know, I've to get that out of my, because I used to just really be interested. I read a lot about advertising theory. I read a whole bunch of books about advertising, and so used to just get really interested in looking at what are they saying, all these messages. I realized it's all going in me, you're letting it in you. So it's, even if you think you're clever and can work it all out, they still get you in the end. Do you know what I mean? Really, they still get you in the end. So the best thing is just lower the eyes and try not to look at it. Really, it's a bad habit, But I read all that stuff, and then I really got interested in seeing. And now the ads are really frightening because they're so subliminal. They don't even. There's no words anymore. They're just showing images now. They don't even show words, or they'll just have 2 words. Think different, and you don't even know what does that mean, right? What's that?
3-second rule.
What's that?
I have to relay the message to you within 3 seconds.
Oh, right, 3-second rule. Yeah. Well, I used to read a magazine called Advertising Week, which is a really horrible magazine, because the ads are selling human beings. See, they say there's no more slavery, right? Read those ads. It's literally, we can sell you 500,000 people. I mean, those ads literally say that. And sometimes they'll have sheep in them. That you know what they think about the consumer. Right? They say in America, the consumer is king. What a load of rubbish that is. So, the point being is, Allah doesn't love the farihin. And so that's a reminder that if you have batar, it means Allah doesn't love you. And so inshallah, Allah cure us of that disease. The next one is bughd. Another disease is hatred. وَالْبُغْضُ لَا فِي جَانِبِ الْعَلِي. He's saying this bughd is not hatred. It's hatred for other than the sake of Allah. In other words, it's good to hate for the sake of Allah. You should hate corruption. You should hate evil. You should hate, right? But you also have to recognize that it's there by the permission of Allah. Not by the rida of Allah, but by the idhn of Allah. So that's important, so that you don't lose sight that Allah is in control, right? But you should hate it because Allah has told us to hate it. And the Prophet ﷺ did not hate things for their essence. He hated things because of what they manifested, their attributes. The Prophet ﷺ did not hate the zawat, right? He hated the sifat, right? Because Allah created the sifat, and then He gave human beings the ability to do bad in attributes, in sifat, right? So you should hate the things that people do, but not let that hatred blind you, which it does. People become blind with hatred, and that's not blindness for the sake of Allah. That's not hatred for the sake of Allah. So this is with the understanding that you have not done a wrong if you're repulsed by your hatred and do not act in accordance with it to harm the person. What that means is هذا ولا تأثم إن قيلاه تكره ولم تعمد بمقتضاه. It means that your qila or your hatred is not that when you find it in yourself, you don't like it. Why don't I like that person? If you don't have a sharia reason for not liking a person and you don't like them, it's not a good sign. There has to be a sharia reason. If you don't like them without a sharia reason, it's a disease in the heart. There's no reason you should not dislike them. It's something in the heart. Which does not mean that people have incompatibilities. In other words, you might not be compatible with another person, but you shouldn't have hatred towards them, right? Unless they're doing something wrong. So it doesn't mean you have to be their friend or you have to spend time with them, but if you feel in your heart that you have animosity towards that person or bughd, it's a disease of the heart. And, what's that? Yeah, we're getting to that, inshallah. I think there's a line missing here. Yeah, come on. Yeah. Oh no, he gave it in the first one. Sorry. دَوَاءُهُ الدُّعَاءُ لِلْمَقْلِيِّ. He said its cure is to pray for the one you don't like. In other words, if you don't like the person, what you do is you actually make dua for them specifically. Mention their name and ask Allah, Allah bless this person, give them thing. And this is actually, it's advice. And if you do that, you'll get a cure for it. Allah will remove that bughd from your heart. So, but again, you have to take the medicine if you want the benefit. He's not joking about these things. They're real, and you have to do it with sincerity, because the whole point is you don't want this disease. You want to get rid of it, so you do it with sincerity. It's not like, oh my God, I have to make dua for this person. It's like, subhanAllah, I don't want to have these feelings. Ya Allah, remove these feelings from me, bless this person, increase them, things like that. And then he goes to the next disease, which is called al-Baghyu. If there's a Sharia reason, you should not hate them if they're Muslim. You should hate what they do, and you should actually want good for them. You should never hate a Muslim. Al-mu'minu la yafraku mu'mina. A mu'min does not dislike another mu'min. Even if they're a bad Muslim, unless they're a munafiq, which is another thing. The munafiq is somebody. But if you see that there are people that pray, that they're struggling with their deen and things like that, but they do bad things, you should not like the things they do, but you should not hate them. And I'll tell you, it's a big secret, but one of the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ said, do you want to see a man who is for paradise? And they said yes, and a man passed by and he said, that man's from the people of paradise. And one of the Sahaba said he had to see what he was doing. He wanted to see what he would do that made him, give him that station. And so he asked if he could spend time with him, and he said yes. And he noticed he didn't do night prayers, he didn't fast, he didn't do anything particular. He was just an average Muslim in Medina. He didn't really see much different from the other people, in fact, less. And he told him, he finally said, I've just been watching you, and, I was trying to see what you do, and you don't really do a whole lot, and, do you have any practices that you do? And the man said, the only thing that I can think of, other than what everybody else does, is that I make sure I never go to bed with any rancor in my heart towards another Muslim. And so he knew that was his secret. Right? So really removing rancor from the heart is just a bad thing. It'll eat a person up. And Baghi comes right after that. Baghi is another horrible thing. Baghi, according to the Opening of the Truth, which is a book, is harming creation where there is no just cause. And the word baghi in Arabic, it's one of the words for prostitute, baghi, and that's what they accused A'udhu Billah, Maryam of being, right? In the Talmud, the Quran mentions it. It's a Talmudic story, and the Quran does mention that the Jews did say that about it. But it is a Talmudic story, even though it's not in the New Testament. And it comes from a word bagha yibghi, which means to desire, right? To desire. So the root of oppression is desire, which is interesting because this, according to the Buddhists, is the fundamental disease of the human being. They believe that it's desire. That's the first noble truth. Out of the four noble truths, the first one is desire. Or actually, the first truth is that everyone is suffering, that the world is suffering. And then the second truth is that the root of suffering is desire. Right? And the third truth is that there is a way out of desire. And the fourth one is the way out. Right? So those were the noble truths that the Buddha taught. But the point about that is, al-hikmatu dallat al-mu'min, I think it's interesting that was the truth that he discovered, because desire, baghi is a big disease of the heart. It's a deep one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nasu innama baghyukum ala anfusikum. 10:23. Your oppression is against your own selves. In other words, this baghi that you're doing, harming other people, in the end, you're only harming yourself. Right? So whatever you do when you unjustly harm another person, it's against yourself. And that's why it's really a deadly disease.